Morning, students. Today our topic is flame photometer. So we will study about flame photometer in detail. So first uh, is a brief introduction about flame photometry. So first is flame photometry is a branch of spectroscopy in which the species examined in a spectrometer are in the form of atoms. So first of all, flame photometry is more accurately called flame atomic emission spectrometry. So it is a branch of spectroscopy in which we examine various kind of species in the spectrometer in different forms of atoms. A photoelectric flame photometer is an instrument that used in inorganic chemical analysis, and it helps to determine the concentration in certain metal ions, among them, for example, sodium, potassium, calcium, and lithium. Flame photometry is also based on the measurement of intensity of light emitted when a metal is introduced into flame. So this is the brief introduction about flame photometer. First is flame photometer is used to examine species under spectrometer. It is also determine the concentration of certain types of ion, for example, sodium, potassium, calcium, lithium, and it also measures the intensity of light emitted when metal is introduced into flame. Next is the wavelength of color tells what the element is. That means the qualitative nature of any substance. Second is it also measures the color's intensity, and when it measure color intensity, what outcome should be. uh, the color intensity tells us how much of the element present. That means it represents quantitative quality of the substance. Next, the basic principle upon which atomic spectroscopy works is based on the fact that matter absorbs light as the same wavelength at which it emits light. Second, atom of elements are subjected to hot flame. Uh, what is the first step? The first step is the atoms of element are subjected to hot flame. Then the specific quantum of thermal energy absorbed by orbital electrons. Next, become unstable at very high energy level and then release energy as photons of particular wavelength and then change back to ground state. So these are the procedures. This is the procedure of photometer. Next is when a metal salt solution is burned. The metal provides a colored flame and each metal ion gives a different colored flame. So when any kind of metal salt solution is burned, it provides colored flame, and each metal ion give a different colored flame. Flame test therefore can be used to test for the absence or presence of a metal ion. Next is the concept of flame photometer. In the concept, a liquid sample containing metal salt solution is introduced into flame. So, in the concept, we learned about a liquid sample that contains metal salt solution that is introduced into a flame, and the solvent that are dissolved in that liquid sample solution are first vaporized and then leaving particles of solid salt, which is then vaporized into gaseous state. After that, that gaseous molecule disassociate to give neutral atoms which can be excited by thermal energy of flame. The unstable excited atoms emit photons while returning to the lower energy state, and then the measurement of emitted photons forms the basis of flame photometry. So this is all about the concept of flame photometer. Next is under constant and controlled condition, the light intensity of the characteristics wavelength produced by each of the atom is directly proportional to the number of atoms that are emitted energy, which in turn is directly proportional to the concentration of the substance of interest in the sample. Various atoms emit different color of light when heated. For example, the first element is sodium. Its emission wavelength is 589 nanometer and its flame color is yellow. And when potassium is heated at 766 nanometer emission wavelength, it produces violet flame color. After that, when barium element is heated at 552 nanometer wavelength, it produces a light which have lime green color. Same as calcium and lithium, uh, when they both are heated at 662 nanometer and 672 nanometer respectively, and they produce color light uh, that is orange and red in color. Next is structure of flame. So what is the structure of flame? As seen in the figure, so as shown in the figure, there are different structures of flame. So first of all, the, the orange part of the dark orange part of the flame is called preheating zone. After that, the light purplish zone of the flame is known as primary reaction zone, and there is an outline in the flame, black color outline in the flame, that is called interconal zone. And after that, the tip of the flame is also called secondary reaction zone. So as seen in the figure, the flame may be divided into following regions or zones. First is preheating zone, primary reaction zone or inner zone, internal zone, and secondary reaction zone. So now we are going to go through a brief description of different zones. First is preheating zone. In this zone, combustion mixture is heated to the ignition temperature by thermal conduction from the primary reaction zone. After that, there is a primary reaction zone in which uh, this zone is about 0.1 mm thick at atmospheric pressure. There is no high thermodynamic equilibrium in this zone, and the concentration of ions and free radicals are very high. This region is not used for flame photometer. Next zone is, that is, interconal zone. It is extended up to considerable height. The maximum temperature is achieved just above the tip of the inner zone. This zone is used in flame photometer. Last one is secondary reaction zone. In this zone, the products of the combustion process are burned to stable molecular species by the surrounding air. So these all are the different zones of uh, different zones of flame, or you can say that the classification of flame in the form of different zones. Next is interference. In determination the amount of a particular element present, other element can also be affect the result. For example, such interference may be three kinds. Spectral. It occurs when the emission line of two elements cannot be resolved or arises from the background of flame itself. They are either too close, or they can be overlap each other, or they occur due to the high concentration of salt in the sample. Next is ionic. It occurs when the temperature is very high and flame may cause ionization of some of the metal ions, for example, sodium. The sodium ion possesses an emission spectrum of its own with frequencies which are different from those of atomic spectrum of the sodium atoms. Third one is chemical. The chemical arises out of the reaction between interference and the analyte, that includes cation and anion interference. This presence, the presence of certain anions such as oxalate, phosphate, sulfate in a solution may affect the intensity of radiation emitted by an element. For example, calcium plus phosphate ion forms a stable substance which does not decompose easily and resulting in the production of lesser atoms. Next is cation-cation interference. These interferences are neither spectral or nor ionic in nature. For example, aluminium with calcium and magnesium. So this is the instrument, or you can say that this is the picture of flame photometer. So you can see in the slide how a flame photometer look like. So this is the diagram of flame photometer. So in which you can see there is a burner out of which a flame is produced, and after frame there is a lens, and after lens filters are present, and filters are connected with photo device, and after that there is an amplifier and readout device is attached. In the bottom of the flame photometer, there is a mixing chamber. There is a outcome of fuel gases and oxidant, and also there is a way to drain the remaining parts. So there are the major components of flame photometer. So first one is sample delivery system. Second is source. Then is monochromator. Fourth one is detector, and fifth one is readout device. First is sample delivery system. So what is sample delivery system? Uh, there are three components for introducing liquid sample. So as we see in the diagram, there is a nebulizer present in the flame photometer. So what is the function of nebulizer? It breaks up the liquid into small droplets. Nebulization is the conversion of the sample into a mist of very fine divided droplets using a jet of compressed gases. The flow carries the sample into atomization region. For example, pneumatic nebulizer that is used most commonly. Next is aerosol modifier. So the main function of aerosol modifier is to remove large droplets from the stream and allow only smaller droplets than a certain size to pass. Next is flame or atomizer. So what is the function of flame and atomizer? It converts the analyte into free atoms. And after that, the second component of flame photometer is source. So what is the source in the flame photometer and what are its functions? So a burner used to spray the sample solution into fine droplets. So several burners and fuel plus oxidant combination have been used that produce analytical flame, and including pre-mixed, Necker, total consumption, Lunderger, shielded burner, and nitrous oxide acetylene flame. So what first is pre-mixed burner. So what is the function of pre-mixed burner? It is widely used because uniformity in flame intensity. So the pre-mixed burner produced a uniform flame intensity of light. In this energy type of burner, aspirated sample, fuel, and oxidant are thoroughly mixed. So in pre-mixed burner, all types of burners, aspirated samples, fuels, and oxidants are mixed thoroughly before reaching the burner opening. Next is total consumption. In this fuel and oxidant are hydrogen and oxygen gas. So in total consumption burners, sample solution is aspirated through a capillary by high pressure of fuel and oxidant and burnt at the tip of the burner. So in total consumption burner, the entire sample is consumed. So here you can see the picture of both the burners. a premix type burner and a total consumption burners. So there are a lot of difference between premix type of burner and total consumption burner. Next component is monochromator. So in monochromator, there is a prism uh, that used quartz material for making prism, as quartz is transparent over entire region. Next is grating. It implies a grating, which is essentially a series of parallel straight lines cut into a plane surface. Next one is detector. So detector used to show the readings, or you can say that there is a readout. This is a readout device. So in detector, first is photo multiplier tubes are used, and then photo emissive cells are used, and the photovoltaic cells are used. So first is photovoltaic cells. So what are photovoltaic cells? It has a thin metallic layer coated with silver or gold, which act as electrode. Also has metal base plate, which act as another electrode. Second is two layers are separated by semiconductor layer of selenium. When light radiation falls on selenium layer, this creates potential difference between the two electrodes and cause flow of current. And next one is readout device. It is capable of displaying the absorption spectrum as well as absorbance at specific wavelength. Nowadays, the instrument have microprocessor that control electronic and that provide outputs compatible with the printers and computers. So thereby minimizing the possibility of operator error in transferring data. So uh, what kind of reading uh, they show? As when the element, any kind of element uh, burn at a specific wavelength, its detection limit is read out. So when, for example, aluminium element is burned, heated up at 396 nanometer wavelength, its detection limit is 0.5. Similarly, there are another various types of elements. So you can see in the table, there are different types of element and their wavelength and their detection limits. And at last, what are the applications of flame photometer? That means, what are the uses of flame photometer in our uh, daily routine, or you can say that in practical life. So first is, it is used to estimate sodium, potassium, calcium, lithium, etc. Level in sample of serum, urine, CSF, and other body fluids. So when we want to test our urine, serum, CSF, and other body fluids, so we use flame photometer to estimate the content of sodium, potassium, calcium, and lithium. Next is flame photometer is useful for the determination of alkali and alkaline earth metals. It also helps in the determination of lead in petrol. So it is also used in the study of equilibrium constants involving in ion exchange reagents. It is also used in the determination of calcium and magnesium in cement. So this is all about flame photometer. Uh, in today's lecture, we studied about the flame photometer. First, we studied its introduction, and after that, we studied about uh, the diagram or the different components of flame photometer, and there is a brief study of different components. And at last, we study the uses of, or you can say that the application of flame photometer. So hope you guys understand about all about the flame photometer. So thank you so much. Have a nice day.